The First World War was a furnace of terrible innovation, giving us the tank, the fighter plane, and poison gas. But while soldiers stared across the mud of no man's land, inventors were trying to leapfrog technology to build the next superweapon. They dreamed of rockets raining down on enemy trenches, years before the V2. A secret arms race was sputtering to life, and this is the untold story of the superweapon that almost was, and why it never got off the ground. By 1915, the War of Movement was a memory. Millions of men were dug into trenches stretching from the Swiss Alps to the sea. This new war was defined by the machine gun, a weapon so brutally efficient it made 19th century tactics suicidal. Crossing no man's land was an invitation to be cut down in seconds. The answer was artillery. Massive guns, miles behind the front, could obliterate trenches and became the king of the battlefield. Yet even artillery had limits. The shelling turned the battlefield into a cratered swamp, slowing any advance to a crawl. Defenders could also hide deep in concrete bunkers, wait out the storm, and pop back up to meet the attacking infantry with machine gun fire. Armies needed a weapon that could deliver a powerful, precise punch, but without churning the earth into a bog. They needed something to cross no man's land faster than a soldier, to crack bunkers and clear trenches. Early attempts were crude. Trench catapults were clumsy and inaccurate. Mortar, like the British Stokes or the German Minenwerfer, were much better, lobbing shells right into enemy lines, but they were short-ranged. In this feverish atmosphere of desperation, a few forward thinkers looked to an old, almost forgotten technology, the rocket. Military rockets weren't new. They'd existed for centuries. From 13th century China to the Congreve rockets that gave the American national anthem its red glare. But by the 20th century, accurate artillery had made rockets seem like ancient curiosities. A few pioneers saw a different future. In the United States, Professor Robert Goddard was obsessively studying rocket propulsion. He realized that modern science could make rockets far more powerful than their gunpowder ancestors. By 1914, he had already patented designs for a liquid fuel and a multi-stage rocket, the foundations of space. When the U.S. entered the war in 1917, Goddard offered his expertise to the military. With Army funding, he developed a small, solid-fuel rocket fired from a lightweight tube, the blueprint for the future bazooka. On November 6, 1918, Goddard demonstrated his prototype to Army officials. They were blown away, but the timing was terrible. Just 5 days later, the war ended. The project, which could have given infantry a weapon against machine gun nests, was shelved. Across the Atlantic, the most notable effort came from a French naval officer, Wybazur Paraya. He saw useful rockets not in the trenches, but in the sky, to take on the terrifying new threat of German observation balloons. These hydrogen-filled balloons, called Drohnen, were the eyes of the German army. Tethered high above the front, observers in their baskets could direct artillery fire with deadly accuracy. For Allied pilots, taking them down was a top priority, but also incredibly dangerous. The balloons were ringed with anti-aircraft guns, and their flammable hydrogen wouldn't always ignite from normal machine gun bullets. This is the problem Yves Le Pria decided to solve. His weapon was simple, a cardboard tube packed with black powder, attached to a biplane struts, and fired electrically. In theory, it was brilliant. In reality, it was a bit of a nightmare. The biggest issue was accuracy. The Le Pria rocket was basically a glorified firework with no guidance, and its effective range was only about 115 meters. To hit anything, a pilot had to dive almost straight at the balloon, fire at point-blank range, and then yank the plane up to avoid a crash. It was a maneuver that took incredible nerve. Despite the flaws, the Le Pria rocket worked. It became the world's first operational air-to-air rocket, and its debut was spectacular. During the Battle of Verdun in May 1916, a group of French aces attacked a line of German balloons, torching 6 of them in a single raid. The German army panicked and pulled down the rest of their balloons along a 100-kilometer front. For a critical moment, the German artillery was completely blind. But this success was a flash in the pan. The rocket was a niche weapon for a niche problem. It was great against stationary balloons, but never brought down a single moving zeppelin. Soon, an even better technology appeared. Incendiary machine gun bullets, which were far more accurate and could be fired from a safer distance. By 1918, the La Pria rocket was obsolete. The technology was just too primitive, unreliable, and didn't carry much punch compared to a trained motor crew or a field gun. The history of warfare is full of these forgotten chapters and what-ifs. What other overlooked weapons do you think deserve more attention? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring the hidden corners of military history, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. By the end of the war, the rocket was little more than a curiosity, overshadowed by the brutal, world-changing impact of the tank and the combat aircraft. But the dream didn't die. Robert Goddard went on to build the world's first liquid-fueled rocket in 1926, earning his title as the father of modern rocketry. Lessons from his simple WW1 designs helped inform the development of the bazooka in World War II. And in Germany, engineers would pick up Goddard's research to eventually create the V-2 ballistic missile, unleashing the terrible power that had lain dormant. The WW1 Superweapon that never was had simply shown up too early. Its failure was just a prelude to a future where rockets would not only change war forever, but carry humanity to the stars.